All right. I'm coming. Here I am. Hold on. Get stuff together. Almost there. All right. I think it's rolling. Very quite possibly. Hi, hey, it's working. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday afternoon, and here we are together again. It's Hump Day afternoon, and I'm very happy that you could join me. Hey, before we get started, too late. I already started. See how that works? I always, that's one of my pet peeves when people say, before I get started, which is a form of starting. So there is a, excuse me, there was a promise made in the new Congress. Pardon me as I just jammed a sandwich down my face because I woke up from my coma 15 minutes ago. There were a myriad of promises, but the big one was, because of how the rules package was written, gone are the days of House members standing on the floor talking to no one, standing at a podium, just yammering shit into the congressional record, just, without the rest of their colleagues backing them up. That they had to sit there and listen to the debate and back and forth because that's what the American people wanted. That's what they voted for overwhelmingly, especially, and the Freedom Caucus was one of their red lines. Did you know that most of the people you see on C-SPAN, when they're talking and spouting something or arguing a point or arguing an amendment or arguing about spending, there's nobody else there? Do you know that? And aren't you outraged? Shouldn't everyone have to show up whenever Boebert decides to yammer something for a half an hour? By God, yes. And as a matter of fact, McCarthy doesn't get our present votes until he actually votes, until he puts the rules in, and then everybody is going to have to sit there and listen. Or not at all. Chip Roy could come to the floor when no one is there and talk for 30 fucking minutes. And then Forbes breaking news, which I don't think is a Forbes related thing, or maybe it is. Maybe it's Steve Forbes breaking news, personally. They're going to post that. Yeah, notice the I guess you know what I mean. At this point, I'm thinking maybe the Republicans just are wearing seat camo. So, this is Chip Roy, and Chip Roy is making a speech on the House floor. Members of Congress speak on the House floor. Member of Congress, a dainty little member, but still a member nonetheless, speaking to the congressional stenographer, and I guess the C-SPAN cameras. But do you guys remember that being a big thing? That was one of their big wins. Now, the idea is that they're going to have to be there for the amendment process or something, but this was across the fucking board. Chip is going full Newt, early 90s. Well, let's see. We don't have to listen to all of this because it's the same shit he's been saying forever. But this is, by the way, this is a clip pulled on this Forbes breaking news channel of a 30-minute speech this fucker gave alone on the House floor. Because the Freedom Caucus insists that everyone show up when somebody has to speak to the floor during this kind of stuff. And none of those Freedom Caucus members are present anywhere that we're aware of. Here you go. Here's a little taste.
Spending restraint. How are we going to tackle spending? I'd like to listen to my colleagues tell me, how do you plan on tackling spending? Because right now, my basic understanding of how my colleagues on the other side of the aisle would tackle spending is tax people or keep spending money or both.
There are cuts that have been offered by Democrats as well, but the idea is that he's so anti-tax. Taxes are no way, even if it's a billion-dollar company. And by the way, that's already been done. The baseline 15% tax, the minimum 15 on billion-dollar profit companies, it's already through. It's already in. It's already happening. It's going to be part of how things are budgeted in the future, and it will affect how we pay down the deficit. It's already happened. Before this asshole and his party squeezed a minor win through and now control Congress until George Santos and about 7 other Republicans go to jail. And he knows this.
My view on this side of the aisle is
that means his folks.
We don't want to tax people, but we want to keep spending money.
So at least Democrats are offering a solution, if an unpalatable one to him. At least it's one that would come up with extra money to pay for stuff. Whereas the Republicans just seem to want to do that without coming up with the extra money. So we're, 28 seconds in, and he's already outed his own party as a bunch of liars on the deficit.
In the name of defense.
And I don't know why the rest of it, why discretionary spending or whatever is somehow he's considering defense discretionary when it comes to Republican stuff, because he wants to unspend the Ukraine money. That's what this is about, by the way. This has nothing to do with American defense. He thinks any money we're spending on another country is not in the interest of the United States.
Anybody want to come challenge me on that assertion?
Nobody seems to want to come there while you're talking at all.
Happy to debate them. Either side of the aisle. Come on down.
Nobody wants to talk to you, Chip. Listen to the echo in that fucking room.
Let's debate it.
See, hear how empty that room is? That room is so empty, you could record John Bonham's drum sound in it.
I don't think anybody will take that debate on.
Yes, because no one wants to talk to you, Chip. It has nothing to do with the debate itself, by merit or by thought or by concept.
Because they know I'm right.
No, because they don't like talking to you because you're an idiot.
Why don't we change that?
I don't know. Start with your own party, because again, the Democrats in his assessment, which is flawed, but let's give it to him for the sake of argument. The Democrats have at least come up with a way of coming up with more funds for either paying down the deficit or adding the programs they want. The Republicans have none. So if you're going to start sweeping one porch over the other, you're going to head to the messiest one covered in the most shit.
Where are my colleagues on the other side of the aisle when it comes to spending?
They're at raising taxes on rich people so that everybody pays their fair share, so that it contributes, so that they can use that money to pay for the programs, especially when it comes to the debt ceiling that we've already done.
I'd like to know.
It's in read the omnibus. If you complain about the omnibus and like nobody's even read this fucking thing, well, it's out now. It's been signed. Read away, motherfucker. 4,000 pages. I don't know what the fuck you're doing on the floor. Get your reading glasses on and a bookmark.
I think the American people deserve to know.
Well, the Democrats will take care of themselves. Mind your fucking business. How about this? How about explain why your party, who apparently has zero solutions for it and apparently wants to, I don't know, fund more nukes or something, why they think that just spending without any solutions is a better solution than spending and taxing to make up for it. Fucking hell.
Do you believe
in a thing called love?
In modern monetary theory, just keep spending money and it doesn't matter?
Apparently that's what modern monetary theory is. I'm guessing, not being a student of it, that it's a little more complicated than that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be modern. It would just be, I don't know, an ailment some people have. The ones who stay up all night watching late night infomercials and ordering everything they see.
I don't. I think that's foolish.
Yes, well, I'm sure that straw man is a bad lay. So stop fucking it, move away, and go deal with your own side.
I think it's reckless. I think it undermines our dollar.
Yes, our dollar, which is arguably, according to the Fed and all the economics people that are on that he supports is too strong right now. That dollar that's so undermined that it's worth $1.10.
I think it undermines our financial stability.
Yes, honey. We need to keep living in an apartment with all the kids because it undermines our financial stability to raise them in a house that we could pay a mortgage on, where the payment is cheaper than the apartment, and our children can grow better. And the analogy suits the
More importantly, I think it makes it impossible for us to make good decisions about how to make policy and execute policy.
Why? Here's a good question, and follow me on this. Why? Why does this policy you're talking about cost money? Why is every policy you're talking about have a financial cost to it? Certainly there's some regulation to it, but if you give a new law to police officers, the FBI, the IRS, or whatever, they just add it to the other things that they police if they come across it or they find evidence of it, but they don't have to add on a new wing to the FBI headquarters for every fucking crime that now becomes illegal, especially when it's financial crimes, Ponzi schemes and shit like that. So why do your anti-abortion or anti-choice bills cost money? What's the fucking cost? How does that harm your ability, your policy, the policies that you put forward, which are against women's ability to choose, against LGBT people, anti-immigrant in so many ways, and again, complicating on an international scale our immigration policy in a way that probably costs more fucking money.
How can you make a tough decision about whether or not you need to buy a bomber, or whether or not you need to fund a particular grant program, or fund a particular entitlement that is way oversubscribed and out of money?
An entitlement, way oversubscribed. So you don't, Social Security is like a subscription, to like a Jelly of the Month Club. Clark, that is the gift that keeps on giving all the year round. Or like, I don't know, Jugs magazine. That's that. And mentally, that's the subscription. That's the level, the importance of both those things. Chip Roy thinks of Social Security on the same plane as a subscription to Jugs, if there is such a thing.
How can you make a decision about that if the answer is just keep printing money?
First of all, because it isn't just keep printing money. You've already established, fucko, that when he's pointing to the Democratic side, notice that the whole time he's gesturing in that direction. He's pointing towards the people who want to raise taxes specifically that were cut and not paid for while Trump was in office. So you could just restore the tax level that was there before, and that would solve a bunch of it. But acting like if you dislike like raising taxes or repealing a tax break, that's one thing. But you can't pretend it's not a solution. They're not refusing to bring something to the table. That's what they're bringing to the table. Just because it's a non-starter with you doesn't mean that your party gets to fall back on, well, fuck it, if we don't do that, we don't have to do anything. Here's a good idea. I'll float this for you. These fuckers already put up a bill to repeal the IRS or the income tax and get rid of the IRS. Never going to happen, but blah, blah, blah. Here's a good idea. And this is what they would do if they weren't complete chicken shits. Okay, you ready? This is what, if Chip Roy was not a complete chicken shit, and if everybody in the Freedom Caucus wasn't full of shit across the board, full of chicken shit, obviously, what they could do is, instead of putting up a bill that proposes the repeal of the income tax and the elimination of the IRS, put up a bill that starts a VAT tax across the whole country, a sales tax on everything that will transition over the course of 5 years or 10 years, whatever the next decade is, away from income tax to a VAT tax. It doesn't have to start all at once. You're not going to, because you'd never pass that. And they know they would never pass it, so that's why they post it. They know it's such, like, you know, it's one of those things like if a far right or far left member of the Democratic Party said, I'm instituting a bill to eliminate the Pentagon, like, it not only is that an absurdity on its face and whatever, but it's also chicken shit. What it is it's a performative piece of legislation that will never solve the problem. And even by proposing it as such, you undermine, you know, any of your argument. It just sounds like you want to, you know, pants the entire country on a security level. And therefore, from that point on, nobody's going to listen to what the fuck you have to say about that issue because they know you're not serious. Same thing is true about this income tax thing that they just put forward. If they had guts at all, they'd say, we're going to have a federal VAT tax. Sales tax is regressive, though, says Skycom. Exactly. Yes, somebody in the chat just said that. It's regressive. That's why. Because their constituents in red states, but especially the poorer constituents they have, or the more consumptive constituents they have in the middle income areas, would be hit by that VAT tax way more than super rich people who buy their shit all over the world and buy it through businesses and all kinds of other stuff. Through LLCs and yada yada. Trust me, Trump would find a way to barely ever pay a dime of it and then get a refund. But if you were serious about eliminating the income tax in the United States, you would present a bill that institutes a VAT tax at a certain point and then institutes a mandatory increase up into the point you could eliminate, there'd be like a crisscross, a Venn diagram of when you could drop the income tax. There is no fucking way they are ever going to do that. So everything that they're proposing around this is PR. And it's political bullshit. They are politically bullshitting their constituents. Even this whole thing where he's acting like he's the purist between the two parties. Look at his hand gestures like he's holding back crowds that don't fucking exist. Nobody's there. Where'd everybody go?
I mean, that's my question.
Then why are you asking the ones that actually put forward a solution, which is raising taxes specifically on the wealthiest Americans? Even if you disagree with it, stop pretending it isn't one.
And I just would suggest there's no more important question for us to answer.
Sure there is. If, let's just use COVID, for example. Let's say you, God forbid, you're in your family. Let's use they love the whole kitchen table analogy with finances. You have a mortgage, you have a car payment, you have a telephone payment, you have school tuitions and shit like that. And one of your kids is in an accident or has a disease that, you know, like cancer or something that needs treatment. And you stand up at the dinner table and go, look, he was diagnosed 2 years ago. I say if he's not out of it by January 19th, we stop paying medical bills and stop taking him to the hospital. That's the suggestion here. Because we can't afford adding to it. Never, you know, and we stop paying our mortgage, we stop paying the car payment, we'll see if he goes any further with this in this. But the idea is that we're going to stop paying for the stuff that we already accrued, as opposed to finding a way to wean ourselves off like you would a prescription med, for example.
Because if we don't, then we're never going to come to agreement on the policies.
That's ridiculous. By the way, if you'll notice, and this is a fight he's having in his own party, understand this. This is not really, as much as he's couching it as an argument between him and Democrats about we're never going to come to terms. He means his own folks. That's what he's saying about defense. He think 95% of the Republicans are for supporting Ukraine. Chip Roy is against it the same way Marge is, the same way Boebert is, the same way Gates is. They're whipped up in this shit. They don't want to do it. and everybody else in their party is like, you're a fucking maniac. Of course we're going to do that. This is what this is about. This is not about an internal fight. Like, we're never going to be able to agree on policy if we can't do this dollar thing. That is his policy. His policy is cut off Ukraine. Support Russia in this. Let it happen.
Ever.
And that's just dumb. Oh, by the way, if you'll notice, I don't know if you guys, where you were for the last 2 years, if you're just joining me. Anybody remember the number of bipartisan bills, including the infrastructure bill, including gun legislation, and a myriad of other things that actually was bipartisan, much less uniformly supported by every Democrat and a spattering of Republicans? They agreed on a bunch of shit. But this has nothing to do with bipartisan legislation. This is a fight between Chip Roy and the rest of the Republicans.
If I go home and I talk to my wife and I say, look, we're going to cap our spending at our 2022 levels of spending, then we've got to make choices. We got to decide, well, are we going to just not make our mortgage payment? No, we got to do that. Are we going to not feed our kids? Well, no, we got to feed our kids.
Yeah, but they don't have to eat that much, do they?
Are we going to have electricity and heat? Well, we'd like to have that. Then comes the discretionary questions. Do you take a vacation? Do you get a new car rather than patching together your 15-year-old car? Do you?
And by the way, do you know what his analogy in this situation is? With it, it sounds like, do we need a brand new bomber or the old bomber's just fine? But in reality, he's talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Send your kids to a certain school? Do you
fuck them.
Save a certain amount of money for college? Maybe you forego college because you look at college and go, why am I going to spend $300,000 to send them to a college that are going to teach my kids that America's evil?
Well, I don't know why you would choose America's Evil SU, but AESU is one of the, it's I don't know how it got into the Big Ten, and because the spelling there is atrocious.
I'll save that for another rant.
Yeah, because it's not a conversation, it's a rant. This is a rant. At his own colleagues. Don't think for a second. Don't let the whole woke blah, blah, blah. Don't think for a second this has anything to do with Democrats. This fucker is not on the floor bitching about Democrats at all. He's toying with the language. But this is McCarthy and the other 95%, including Marge.
But that's my point. We have to do that as families. But this body never does it.
By the way, this man supports Donald John Trump, the king of debt, who has never had a single day where his company turned a profit. That every dollar since Donald Trump took over his dad's company has been owed to someone else. Every single dollar. Every dollar he spends is part of the borrowed package. Donald Trump lives on debt. He bragged about it. He used his amount of debt to rig his taxes. Chip Roy supports that. He thinks it's fucking genius until you do it.
Ever. We pretend to do it. We pretend to do it.
Pretend to do what?
The point of the agreement reached last week was...
Again, notice that? This is not about Democrats.
To open this body up, empower rank and file.
Yeah, that's what he considers himself.
But also importantly, establish some parameters for how we fund the federal government.
There are lots of parameters. You don't get to establish your parameters as dominant over everybody else's. And when you present your argument in such a chicken shit, straw man, garbage, attacking your own side kind of way, no one is there to back you.
And those parameters should be that we set limits.
And he means the debt limit in this situation. He's also alone in this. In the same way that, if you want to do the kitchen table analogy, we've talked about the leaky roof. We've talked about things like frozen pipes or a fucking meteor hitting the house. And what they're suggesting is that all along the way, when those things happened, you just suck it up. Live in the carcass of the house. Don't borrow money to patch the roof. Don't, call the fire department, which I guess in his world you'd pay a fee for, to come and put the fire out. Your investment isn't worth a fuck. And again, Chip Roy is one of these people who treats America like an apartment he lives in. He's a renter. His patriotism is to the extent that a college kid is to the place they're renting with their parents' money.
And if you set limits, now you have to sit down and figure it out. But here's the problem.
Your party.
I don't believe that Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats want to sit down at the table and figure out how to limit spending.
Well, no, they might not in some cases, but they might find a way to raise taxes or shift around priority spending so that they don't have to, or the things that they want to cut, you don't want to cut. But they're not going to have a conversation with you because you're alone in this. They're going to sit down with Kevin McCarthy at some point, and they're going to listen to his fucking blather that he says when he walks out of the meeting and when he's walking into the meeting, which is going to be wholly different to what he agrees on in the actual fucking meeting.
I don't believe that the President of the United States or his current Director of the Office of Management and Budget or any of his team wants to sit down at the table with us and figure out how to limit spending.
Okay. Let's see. Biden deficit. You don't think so? Okay. Federal figures Thursday coming high. House budget push cheap cuts. Blah blah blah. This is McCarthy's quote on it. Said this week the Republicans would use their leverage, including the need to raise the country's debt limit, to corral spending. One of the greatest threats we have to a nation is our debt, Mr. McCarthy said on Fox News. It makes us weak in every place that we can. It makes us weak in every place that we can. It makes us weak in every place that we can. What the fuck does that mean? Fucking hell. It makes us weak in every place that we can. That quote has boggled my fucking mind for a week.
But I've not even heard him come down and say, well, fine, you're right, Chip.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
We're spending more money than we have, and we're racking up more debt, so we believe we need to increase taxes.
And by the way, Chip, do you make a car payment? Do you have a mortgage? Why are you spending more money than you have? Why are you buying insurance? If you can't afford to have cancer, you should be able to pay for it right out of pocket.
Okay, well, come make your offer.
Why? They passed an omnibus bill. They have a spending package. They raised taxes on billion-dollar corporations of minimum 15%. They had Janet Yellen work with our allies overseas to make sure it was in multiple countries so that companies wouldn't pack up here as soon as we started it and move to Ireland or England or France or Austria or some shit where they won't have it because they'll all have it together. We already been through this.
We'll raise taxes. Okay, show me how raising those taxes is going to eliminate the deficit.
It's not going to eliminate the deficit. It's going to pay it down, fucko.
He whispers, it's not.
That's a Biden thing, even though it's Schumer.
Show me. How raising those taxes is not going to undermine economic growth, make it more difficult for American people to get jobs.
Yeah. You mean like refusing to raise the debt ceiling does every fucking time you guys do this?
Undermine the prosperity of the American people.
Which is what happens every time they try not to raise the debt ceiling. By the way, in this time that we've been like, oh my God, our national debt is through the fucking roof. Hold on. Let me let's see. Whoops. U.S. GDP chart. Let's two. Okay. See if I can get a boo 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 boo. GDP, let's see. Oh, I don't want the growth. I just need the number. Okay, here you go. GDP, I don't want. See if I can find. Yeah, here you go. This is here's a, you know the chart you always see about our national debt that it keeps going up. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. It keeps going up. We keep borrowing money on this thing, and it's outrageous because our economy's what, $2 trillion? It's like $5 million bucks. That's the most of the clamoring. That when did the national debt clock start? 90s, right about here. 91, 92, right? This is when the national debt clock started going up. And there's like a, hold on, let's see if I can do a comparison chart. National debt over time, something like that. Where's the national debt? Here we go. So now this is, you'll have, forgive me because this is a thinner chart. Oh, here you go. Wait. Yeah, so it drops down. Here's the national debt as a part of GDP. But the, like there you go. Let's start about this is 1980, 1990. Like it drops down like around Carter's time. By the way, I don't know why the fuck the Republicans don't just fucking love Jimmy Carter. Because look at this. And Reagan comes in and there you go. This is us, bringing down Russia, and then, we don't need to do that anymore, and then 9/11, and then blah, blah, blah. Lots of other shit as well. That's the trend over time as part of GDP. I was trying to look for the actual number, so you can see national debt by year. Let's see if there's a, come on, chart, a graph. Give me a graph. You bastards. National debt over time. Graph. Whoops. National debt. Let's see. Yeah, so here's an inversion of it. Here's an inversion of it. It's this is the money going, down is the amount of debt. So flip this upside down. Here's GDP. Going from zero as charted, like $280,000 in 1947, to the current U.S. GDP at 25.7. So $26 trillion is the current GDP, quarter three of 2022. The United States GDP is $26 trillion. Meanwhile, the debt is $30 trillion. Now, it was, let's see, 2019. And again, most of this is cumulative and you're paying interest on stuff or what have you. But let's look at the same arc right here. So right about the time you see the biggest increments, and even then, it's not huge by comparison. This is about this is basically the slice of compound interest at a certain point. which is why you have to pay down some of the actual principal in this regard, which is why you'd need billionaires to pay taxes, billion-dollar companies more than like, because every billionaire in the country, if you taxed all of their money all at once, it wouldn't be a fucking drop in the bucket. But the companies that are worth billions of dollars, they would actually have a source of revenue that they earned because they're protected by the United States and all of its intellectual property and the military and all the things that keep them functioning as a company wouldn't exist without other people paying taxes for them, even if they're R&Ding their way out of paying taxes. That this right here, you're at 30.93, and in let's see, yeah, it was at 2272 in 2019. Since the adding of this extra debt, you can track, this is the lurch in GDP. So basically, imagine taking out a loan for a business that it's not a mortgage payment that you're talking about at this point. The mortgage payment stuff starts about is like here, and consider this like your standard of living stuff. That you borrowed money and you got a car, and you borrowed money and you got a house, and your family has a house and 2 kids and a car and a garage and a fucking yard and all that stuff. Okay, and you borrowed a lot less money, but that's what you've got, okay? And then you decide at some point after you've gone to college, you borrow like a third more, and your income shoots up to here. Anyone who looks at that can see that the vast majority of America's debt has been to raise the standard of living and the prosperity of the country as a whole. And again, this fucker thinks Donald Trump is a genius because he's always spending other people's money. Other people loan Donald Trump money, and he spends it on fucking curly Q French furniture and Big Macs and fish delights, and that makes him a genius. But if the United States does it and has an economic impact like Earth has never fucking seen, it's completely irresponsible and runaway, blah blah blah.
Show me that. Come.
Yeah, $5,000 to get a job that earns 50 grand. That is exactly right, DB. For decades.
Demonstrate that. Whispers, that's not really that easy to do.
And he's trying to do he thinks he's doing the Biden, that's not really that easy to do. And he's forgetting that he set up this was a conversation with Schumer and Senate Democrats.
But our job is to responsibly represent the American people. It's not to govern. We often use that word. That's crazy.
No, it isn't. That's what policy does. Policy is an act of governance. It's a representative governance, which means everybody has a say, not everybody wins. Democracies work that way. But it's, of course, governance. The fuck do you think like the bipartisan gun legislation was? That is an act of governance.
We don't govern.
Well, you don't govern.
We represent.
What the fuck does that mean? I'm just coming here doing what the people in my district tell me to do. Bullshit.
And our job is to represent our constituents, and I don't know any constituents
that if I put it in really stupid terms, will go, yeah, that sounds good.
Frankly, even my most left-leaning constituents, to be honest, I don't know.
Which I'm sure he listens to, and I'm sure he feels he represents as part of what he's saying here today.
So any constituents who are saying, oh yeah, please go up there and spend more money we don't have.
Well, when you put it like that, but if let's just say, you're driving along and there's a car accident. and you, against your better judgment as an Ayn Randian, decide to get out of your car and help take some of the people to the hospital, and you bring one of your constituents, not even one of your left-leaning constituents, into the hospital, and they got a mangled fucking leg and a piece of a fender stuck in their abdomen, and they're losing a lot of blood, and they're about to wheel them into ICU and then into surgery, and you stop them and go, wait a second, I don't think you can afford to live. Honestly, look at his tie. Look how much he spent on that tie. This is ridiculous. Right.
I would just suggest
a pile of manure.
That according to the CBO, we're going to see another $15.7 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years.
Right. And an increase in GDP of somewhere between 8 and 9% over those years.
That's the truth.
Yes, but it's only half the truth, which is the whole fucking game. All right, I don't know about you guys, but I'm bored with this fucker. The whole speech is a half hour if you want to go look at it. But this is indicative of what's going on in the Republican caucus right now. This has fuck all to do with an argument with Democrats about budgetary numbers. This is Chip Roy trying to bitch his colleagues on the Republican side into buying his Freedom Caucus, tighten our belts, choke everything off bullshit, considering especially that Chip Roy comes from a district that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the New Yorks and the Dallases and the Los Angeleses and the San Franciscos of the fucking world. Like this whole idea that they're like, that Chip Roy's district is off the fucking grid and doesn't get more than its fair share of federal funding. Here's a real easy way to do it. I got a solution that will work for Chip Roy. Hear me out. I think this will work. Chip Roy goes back to his district and says, hi, everybody, as your representative in Congress, I went up there and I crunched the numbers. And for every 47 cents we put in federal taxes, we get $1.20 back from the federal government. And one of the ways that we can fix the debt in a lot of ways is simply to just go 1 for 1. So for every 47 cents we put in taxes, we get 47 cents worth of services back. That's it. We in this district, because I hear you, we're not going to contribute. We're going to be a pilot program for tightening our fucking budgets. Have you ever, and do you ever, expect one of these motherfuckers to say anything of the like to their constituents? No. What he's talking about is big cities. Big, rich cities that pay for his district to fucking exist in the first place need to stop supporting all the poor people in those cities that largely, by the way, ice skate uphill against the cost of living in a big city all the time because their choice is to live out in the fucking sticks and work for Walmart and still have to have Medicaid because they can't afford it. There is not a single, and I challenge them, I challenge my colleagues on the other side, a single fucking Republican deficit hawk to look at the books of their district and say to their constituents, the national debt, and I've worked with some of my other colleagues on our side, they're gonna do this too. Matt Gaetz is going to go to his fucking district in the Panhandle, and Marge Gates is going to go to the George's 4th or whatever the fuck. And they're going to say to their constituents, we need to fix the debt, right? Yeah. We don't need to spend money we don't have, right? Yeah. Everybody behind me? Okay, excellent. Our district is relatively poor, and we only kick in about 47 cents for every $1.20 we get from the federal government in services, and all the shit we're supposed to pay into, like making sure airplanes don't fall out of the sky and all that shit, and not to mention the highway system. We can't afford any of this shit. So our district is going to turn away any federal help over that number. One of them. One of these motherfuckers. I would love to see them stand in front of a crowd of maggots and explain to them how the next district over is going to get $1.06 worth of services for every, because they put $1.06 in. They're going to get top-notch stuff. When there's a hurricane, when there's if there's an outbreak, covered. If there's an earthquake, if they have a terrorist incident or whatever, the federal government's going to rush right in there and go, here's dollar for dollar what you need and keep the change. But Chip Roy's district is going to stand at the border of their district and when FEMA shows up and say, no, thank you. We cannot spend money we do not have. Never fucking happen. They don't mean we, they mean you. Other than that, I have no opinion. You're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. It's hump day. It's a good time. Tomorrow I'll be on the regular time at 4 o'clock. And of course on Friday morning, it'll be the morning show will be kind of jammed. I'm doing Steph's show in the morning on Friday and then rolling right into my show. So if you're a Steph head and you're in their chat on Twitch, hop on over, just jump ship right over to the show right afterwards. I'll see if I can get them to raid my show. I do it for everyone else. Nobody does it for me. Just sad. Anyways, and then the rest of the shows will be all, normal timing the rest of the week. And then of course, this Saturday, Nerd Halen at the M Resort here in Vegas. Very exciting. Big long set. Lots of songs. Good times. So there we go. Will there be when will there be Man About Town merch? When I actually launch that as a thing. I need a whole production team and I just don't have one. I can't afford it yet. Please super chat. Once we'll get there eventually. I'm not even to the point where I can go, Chip Roy thinks his city deserves less than 50 cents in federal aid per dollar everyone else gets. Prove me wrong with a fucking folding card table and a little sign. I'm not there yet. One day, a boy can dream, can't he? All right. So I just wanted to open up with that business. We definitely have some stuff to cover. Of course, you guys know, and by the way, welcome to the show. You guys know that I pay attention to the stuff about China. 我会说中文. I speak Chinese. I've been there many, many times. And I'm here to tell you, the CCP is ragingly full of shit. The demographics numbers are far worse than even Peter Zion thinks they are, because I was there personally. I have never walked through Times Square at any time of the day and been able to put my arms out and not smack someone accidentally as I'm walking. Thank you, DZ2257. But I've done it in multiple cities in China where they're supposed to have 35 million fucking people, and yet it's fucking nobody. It's the weirdest thing. I at some point that like I can't go back to China now because they won't have me. But if the population, like the stuff that just came out, they're fucked on so many fronts, and largely because Biden took like the little pittance of shit, the trade bullshit, which looks like is very noisy but doesn't amount to a lot. I'm going to get China to buy a bunch of our shit because we buy a bunch of their shit, which was Trump's entire thing, and not recognizing that the fucking trade deficit with China was us getting cheap shit made over there, bringing it over here and selling it to our people and the rest of the world at a profit, making trillions of dollars off of billions of dollars worth of stuff. That's like, I don't know why he's that fucking dumb when the dude has his ties made in China for that exact fucking reason. So, needless to say, is big dum dum. But that didn't stop him from putting out one of these Trump fundraiser videos that he's doing like in the same spot, all sweaty and orange. Like he's just cranking these motherfuckers out like little policy blurbs, and they to raise money, and they're all about the same length. They're really odd, and I guess he's doing this instead of campaigning, or to pretend he's campaigning for financial, for like FEC rules or some shit. Let's see. Also, that's the Great Wall of China you're seeing, and we'll see. Built walls always work. Look, they built a wall.
China is buying up our country.
China is buying up our country. China is. Okay, go for it.
While corrupt Democrats and rhino-type politicians in Washington...
Rhino-type politicians? You mean rhino Republicans? What's a rhino-type politician?
Washington have been spending trillions of dollars on the Green New Deal nonsense, foolish foreign wars, and providing lavish benefits to illegal aliens from all over the planet.
Yeah, I do have to say I'm with him on this. The foot massages are just over the top. Look, I know it's a long walk on the caravan, but pedicures... Hold on 1 second. They don't get pedicures? Are they just those little tinfoil blankets and a sandwich? Well, I mean, one man's tinfoil blanket and a peanut butter jelly sandwich is another man's weekend at the Poconos.
China has been spending trillions of dollars to take over the crown jewels of the United States economy.
During your presidency, you mean?
And they are doing that. China is...
And they are... I love when he wants to add something, it just doesn't have enough oomph in the teleprompter, so he's got to go, and they're doing it terribly, when he does that, and it's like you've never seen before. He always adds that it needs a little flourish, and he just, his zinger in this one is, and they are.
China has been spending trillions of dollars to take over the crown jewels of the United States economy, and they are doing that.
Explain.
China is buying up our technology.
China is buying up our First of all, no, they're not. They're stealing our technology. What the fuck are you talking about?
They're buying up food supplies.
They're buying up food supplies. Oh, don't even. Trump. Motherfucker. This is from Successful Farming. China buys corn and soybeans to keep me happy, says Trump. The expected 6-month review of the Sino-U.S. trade agreement failed to materialize on Saturday, but President Trump expressed satisfaction with the increased pace of farm export sales to China. Motherfucker, this guy, I like the fucking nerve. Oh, God. China has been buying a lot of things, and they're doing it to keep me happy, but they're dreaming about Joe Biden. Why? Because they buy stuff and it doesn't make him happy? Are they upset? I don't know. What the fuck? From Trump on down, administration officials routinely list the Phase 1 trade agreement that de-escalated the Sino-U.S. trade war among the president's 3 top achievements in trade. Oh, really? The others are a U.S.-Japan agreement, and okay, blah. The deal with China calls for Beijing to purchase $36.6 billion of U.S. food, agriculture, and seafood products this year. China purchased a quarter of that amount in the first 6 months of 2020. They also didn't buy any more. They a little bit more. They ended up with a third of it. They were supposed to buy, according to the Phase 1 agreement, $36 billion worth of stuff. They bought 10. And he was bragging about it. Largest order of pork, corn, soybeans, and beef in American history. While, again, Americans were locked down during COVID, and many Americans who'd lost their jobs were in fucking food lines, which We couldn't. The U.S. government could have taken that extra food that we have and not sold it for a fucking few $billion. We have a $26 trillion economy. You're gonna buy like $10 billion worth of food and give it to China? Who gives a fuck? Feed your own people.
They're buying up our farmland. They're buying up our minerals and natural resources.
Oh my God. They're buying up our... Hold on. This was one of the big fears too. China buying... They're buying more like the agribusinesses that process it, is the theory. There you go. First thing, China buying U.S. farmland. It's the first fucking Google to come up. This is KOAA. Let's see. China is buying the farms. Here you go. Politico. This is 2021. Apparently, bipartisan pressure is building up to stop foreign nationals from purchasing, and again, foreign nationals. And the reason is because it's rich Chinese people are doing this, but they're linked to the Chinese government, and it's considered the same thing. So in Trump's mind, Chinese people are China, and so he's just saying it that way. All right. The push to drain China's influence from U.S. economy has reached America's farm country as congressional lawmakers from both parties, look at that, bipartisanship, are looking measure to crack down, and I guess that's the far left Democrats and the rhino-like politicians that he was discussing. Foreign purchase of prime agricultural real estate. House lawmakers recently advanced legislation to that effect, warning that China's presence in the American food system does pose a national security risk, and key Senate lawmakers have already shown interest in efforts to keep American farms in American hands. The debate over farm ownership comes amid broader efforts by Congress and Biden administration to curb the nation's economic reliance on China, especially in key industries like food, semiconductors, and minerals deemed crucial to the supply chain. This, by the way, this is just shit that's already in process. This is in 2021. This is, by the way, this was all happening during Trump. This is they didn't just dream this up in February of 21. This has been an ongoing thing. And he didn't give a rat fuck about any of it during that time. It just started to stink because Biden is totally compromised by China is the storyline.
They're buying up our ports and shipping terminals.
I have my doubts. This is from, the only thing I can find is from Freight Waves. Experts warn of China's influence at U.S. ports. Trade flowing into and out of U.S. ports is increasingly vulnerable to market turmoil as China strengthens its investment foothold around the world, according to geopolitical experts. Testifying at a recent congressional hearing in Washington on China's Maritime Silk Road Initiative, and this is in other countries, not ours, Carolyn Bartholomew, chair of the U.S.-China Economic and Security Review Commission, said China can use its financial control at foreign ports to create markets through which it strengthens its trade relationships. By owning and or operating a network of logistical nodes across Asia, Europe, and Africa, China can control a significant portion of its inbound supply chain for essential commodities and outbound trade routes for its exports. That's where they're using the Belt and Road Initiative to, like, we'll build you a port, and they do it for a country that can't afford to pay off the debt, and then they go, well, I'll tell you what, since you can't pay it, we'll just keep the land around the port forever. So it's our port now, and we can use it for military uses if we want to. That's the plan. And yes, I'm wearing a Taiwanese flag.
And with the help of a corrupt influence peddlers like the...
corrupt influence peddlers. Because sometimes plurals come in ones.
Biden crime family, China is even trying to buy up the pillars of the U.S. energy industry.
Oh, dear God, not the pillars. How will we hold up the roof?
Because frankly, Biden and the group don't care about real energy.
The group, Biden and his background singers. His band just didn't give a fuck, man. They just want to tour and play music and fuck around. We're an American band.
They only care about nonsense energy.
They only care. Wait a minute. Wait. They only care about nonsense energy. These are the best words. I was wrong.
Because frankly, Biden and the group don't care about real energy. They only care about nonsense energy that doesn't work, and it never will.
Well, then it's not really energy, is it, then, I suppose? You mean the sources, I suppose?
While some are focused on China's purchases near power plants and military bases, the fact is...
By the way, they mean like Chinese nationals with like permanent resident status buying like stores near U.S. bases that they think are full of spies, which very well, by the way, knowing the Chinese government, they might be, but they're not buying plots of land to surround our military bases so they can fucking put howitzers on them.
We should be very concerned.
Oh, I'm very concerned. I am. Are you concerned? I'm very concerned. I didn't even know I was supposed to be concerned, but I am. Shit.
About all Chinese communist activity.
Yes, all of it. Anything. What time they go to the bathroom and the content. How many noodles is too many noodles. The hats. Oh, the hats. And the little red books. I'm worried about it. What if they make more of them? What if they don't make enough? What if there's a fight for little red books? And then they start punching each other and and an old lady is crossing the street. I'm worried about all of it. He told me to be worried about all of it, and I'm worried about all of it. This is so fucking stupid.
In the United States, as I have long said, economic security is national security. China does not allow...
Has he long said that? Is that one of his catchphrases? Economic security is national security? Because it's a fairly normal phrase. Let's see. Let's look at that as a quote while we're fucking around. Economic security is national security. First person who ever said it, it's Trump. Let's see. Who's... well, here's economic security is national security. This is Marketplace. Undersecretary of Defense William LaPlante talks weapons acquisition. That was something he said? Yeah, Pentagon's weapons buyer on replenishing stockpiles. Okay, economic security. That's from there. Let's see what else. Let's go. So people ask, is economic security national security? It's a good question. Trump said so. Economic security is national security. Well, that answers that question. Thank God. Commerce.gov put that. Strengthen U.S. economic and national security. Strengthen U.S. 2017 to 2021. Why economic security is national security. The White House. This is Trump White House. Archives.gov. This is 2018. Ronald Reagan. Okay. Ronald Reagan understood it is only from strength that we may find true peace. To Reagan, such strength was focused on military strength. And under the banner of peace through strength, Reagan undermined the very foundations of the Soviet Union without firing a shot. Today we live in a more complex time. Into the breach comes President Donald J. Trump with a new organizing principle. Economic security is national security. That's Peter Navarro. It's the same fucking thing that Reagan was saying. Here's the Rand Corporation. These are in 1994. These folks are the ones who came up with that gamed out. What if Russia attacks Ukraine and all that shit that Jimmy Dore and them were saying this proves that the fucking Pentaveret arranged the entire thing. Let's see, when is this document? 130 pages ago. Economic security as national security. A discussion. This is 2018. Trade and economic security. DHS.gov. How Taiwan's economic security impacts its national security. That's 2022. Economics and U.S. national security. War on the Rocks. 2021. Let's just go right here. Relationship between, that's the Rand again. UK's economics. 2021. Change relationship between economics and national security. 1991. The changing relationship, 1991. It's previewed. The changing relationship. Since ancient Athens taxed its empire to raise a fleet against Sparta, there's always been a strong connection between wealth and military power, and therefore, in the most simple of direct way, between economics and national security. 1991, going all the way back to fucking Crete.
Allow American companies to take over their critical infrastructure and
infrastructure. Oh no! This is nuts.
As I have long said, economic security is national security. China does not allow American companies to take over their critical infrastructure, and America should not allow China to take over our critical infrastructure.
Like, it almost hurts, like the speaking hurts. What the fuck? Okay, we won't. How about that? Okay, everybody good with that? Everybody good with not allowing China to, in a bipartisan nature? Even trolls. Trolls, you out there? I'm okay with that. You okay with that? Let's not let China take over our critical infrastructure. There seems to be bipartisan support in the Congress right now. Obviously, Biden's on the same page. We good? Excellent.
I didn't allow it when I was president, and
Yes, you did.
I won't allow it when we become president
We? Who's we, motherfucker? He's using royal pronouns now?
again.
Again. Oh, that was a cut. Look at that shit. He started choking on that
Over
last one.
our critical infrastructure. I didn't allow it when I was president, and I won't allow it when we become president again. To protect our
Did you see that hot cut? Shit. We become president again. Did I say we? Should I say we? Just fuck it. Leave it. That's what that was. By the way, we've seen the cuts from his other videos when he does it. That's exactly what happened. You can tell.
country, we need to enact aggressive new restrictions on Chinese owners.
We need quick trial. Any Chinese person that we see that speaks a funny language or wears one of those shirts that has the squigglies on it that we don't understand, we need quick trial. Quick trial.
Ownership of any vital infrastructure in the United States, including energy, technology, telecommunications, farmland, natural resources, medical supplies, and other strategic national assets. We should stop
And by the way, he doesn't mean Eric.
all future Chinese purchases in these essential industries.
Okay. Okay. Chinese companies buying these things that are actually in China, or Chinese people just trying to buy stuff because they're Americans. That, you see where the language gets a little fucked up here? Because, again, a lot of the people who are actually watching this horse shit are like, I gotta go down to the city hall and if any Chinese person tries to open a business, we gotta put a stop to this. The chief told me not to.
And we should begin the process of forcing the Chinese to sell any current holdings that put our national security at risk.
Including Eric?
If we don't do this, the United States will be owned by China, which
Oh no.
would make them very happy.
It would. It would be. I mean, it's a nice thing. The United States is lovely. It makes a nice pet. It's very shiny. There's some cool shit to it. It's full of surprises. Never boring.
When I'm president,
He was president, and he did nothing. He did a fucking standard run-of-the-mill, dick-wagging trade war that amounted to fucking nothing. He had a 3-phase trade deal. He only got one phase of it done. And even then, they only got the first knuckle. I'm grossing myself out.
I will ensure that America's future remains firmly in American hands, just as I did when I was president before.
Except for people who died of COVID, obviously. And all the myriad of small businesses that went out of business because he could have been prepared. But fuck it.
It'll happen again, and our country will be stronger than ever.
No, it won't happen again. He's not going to be president again. So it's just not going to happen. 100% not. Count on it. Take it to the bank. Like, this is beyond just losing 3 million, in the popular vote and squeaking by on the electoral. Never fucking happen. Not happening. The internal fight, mwah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, it's the graphic that comes up. He doesn't look very happy with that one. He looks like he made a poo-poo and he smells
In
it.
hands, just as I did when I was president before. It'll happen again, and our country will be stronger than ever. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, that's the standard bearer, ladies and gentlemen. That's the and I don't know why, after all that shit, why the opening of it showed the Great Wall of China as a graphic. I don't know what the editorial message was there. That they've got a wall and we've got a wall and walls and wheels and wheelie walls work. Thank you, Wonderwall. Because after all, I'm your Wonderwall. He's going to keep cranking these stupid fucking things out. And it's, I mean, honest to God, they have all the style and smoothness of the final act of someone who passes away during constipation. This is, honest to God, this is like what Elvis's asshole looked like at the end. I'm sorry, that was so wrong. This is what it was like. This is what the toilet saw. Jesus. All right. Again, apropos of fucking nothing. Mainly there to raise money. That's all these are for. When I'm president, I'll do all the things that I didn't do as president that I was pretending to do or said that I would do, but I'm not going to do. Now, we've looked at Chip Roy. We've looked at Trump running in the next little bit. And certainly we're going to see, some real changes. And these changes, are, they might be a mystery to you and me. You're watching HAL SPARKS MEGAWORDLWIDE, by the way. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up because I go through all of this shit with you. I'm there. I'm your little sidecar of joy. But I always wonder, does anybody have the inside track on what the fuck the plan is? I'm excited. Somebody's going to break it down to it. I've been watching Kevin McCarthy talk about this. I saw the whole Sean Hannity interview. I've seen House Republicans go out on the floor one after the another and blather like Chip Roy did. And I'm still going, I don't know what the fuck these guys are going to do during this Congress. I have no idea other than, investigations and yammering on a committee, but anybody can fucking do that if it doesn't have to amount to anything. Who gives a shit? But here comes the mess to tell us what's going on. And blissfully, this video is only 5 minutes and change. Just under 6 minutes long, so we won't have to fuck. Some of these 13-minute videos are fucking tooth pulls. This one's short, but it'll answer so many questions. I don't know. Do you know? I don't even know. I hope the maggots and amongst the March Trader Green and the Freedom Caucasians, I hope they're watching so they know what they're supposed to do. I don't know. Let's find out. The House GOP's agenda for the next 2 years. Let's see it. I want to know. You want to know. Or do we?
Skirmish erupted between...
Oh, wait. Hold on. By the way. Dip, dip, dip. I had to set this ahead. Listen at the very beginning. The sound at the very beginning.
When the...
What the fuck is with the bell? There's like a...
When the...
Ask not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee.
Skirmish erupted.
It's like it's a fucking... He thinks he's in a Western where everyone wears golf shirts or garanimals. That's a garanimal. There's a fucking whale on his shirt. He is wearing garanimals. So say I.
Between Kevin McCarthy and his supporters and the 20 or so House dissidents.
Dissidents. A dissident is here. No, it wasn't. Fucking Rogers from Florida got, pissed and almost had his wig jerked at one point. The biggest fights have been between Marge and Lauren Boebert, where Boebert told Marge to get the fuck out of my face during that little exchange. And later in the bathroom, they had a big fight. And Debbie Dingell witnessed the whole thing, but refuses to talk about it because what happens in the ladies' room stays in the ladies' room. I respect that.
Almost all of them drawn from the House Freedom Caucus.
All of them were. And by the way, not the entirety of the Freedom Caucus.
When...
Freedom Caucus, just so you know, Freedom Caucus is not just 20 members. There's 30 some odd, or maybe even 40.
All of that was occurring. It was acrimonious. It was somewhat bitter.
Somewhat, but bittersweet.
And it was being, of course, amplified in the media, and there was...
Yeah. And why couldn't they just let it alone? I mean, so what if they almost came to blows? So what if they were shit-talking each other in front of C-SPAN cameras and you could actually see swear words coming out of their mouths towards their own party? That's not news. That's just gossip. That's the kind of shit Harry and Meghan have to deal with. It's just wrong.
Some people, even some Republicans, were like, "This is no way to do business. This discussion should occur behind closed doors. Why are we holding up the important business of Congress?"
Yes, all ridiculous statements. You can tell by his voice and face that he's making, like, who the fuck are these guys that think Mr. Fancy Pants?
And of course, people like Dan Crenshaw, who wanted McCarthy to be, you could almost say, accepted by group acclaim. We don't even need to have a vote. Let's just all agree he's our great leader. Crenshaw was, again, suggesting that there's important business for the House to do, and that business would be held up.
Which was true.
By this kind of an unconscionable delay.
But another kind of unconscionable delay would be lovely.
Now know that the delay was short. What?
Yeah, it was 5 days. And it resulted in rules that set up him being forced to put out like bills right away that go nowhere. Again, prioritizing all these bills, eliminating the IRS and the DOD and getting rid of the IRS 87,000 agents, all this shit that as bills, like have a vote on them that will win on a mild like partisan number. So fucking what? They won't pass in the Senate, and they certainly won't come back. And it's not even because the Democrats will shut it down. Like Republican senators aren't behind this shit. It's garbage. So they held out this thing, embarrassed the shit out of him, had open arguments where they're cussing each other. They have violent outbursts on the fucking floor for 5 fucking days over a knob like Kevin McCarthy, so that they can force him to put forward a bunch of bills that aren't going anywhere, put people on committees that don't have the seniority to be on there and have no business being around those things, especially like DHS and other things. And then, I guess in general, that argument about that everybody has to be there when people make arguments on the floor, which we now know is total bullshit. They're not living up to it. And also the 72-hour rule, right? Oh my God, 72 hours. A bill, if we're going to vote on it, it has to be available for 72 hours. And then as soon as they pass the rules package, they vote on like 4 fucking bills that are introduced at that second. Like they set the rule and then they broke the rule immediately.
4 days, big deal. As if
it wasn't the time, it was what happened during that time.
To say that, this is something that...
But it was also the time.
Couldn't wait because things had to be done. No. 4 days later, we look at the result and we realize the result is much, much better.
Oh, it's so good because dead bills.
The reason it's that this ploy worked, and it was a
all right, let's hear why the ploy worked.
Risky ploy, because of course...
the old risky ploy, trying this, the old risky ploy.
Things would have gone very bad had
yes.
McCarthy become so desperate that he started courting the votes of Democrats. This is something in the back of my mind I was worried about.
Yeah, but I mean, honest to God, though, in the back of your mind, like the rest of your mind, it's relatively uncrowded. I mean, it was a lonely thought under a street light, wondering when a car would come by on a dead-end road.
I didn't think it was likely, but nevertheless, it was possible.
Great. And by the way, I agree. Everyone watching this, I agree. If the entire result of those 4 days was just weird, anxious moments for Dinesh D'Souza, cool. If there were like multiple days where he was like flop sweating, yeah, that was good enough. All that shit was worth it. Even if it was just to make him and Debbie a little coarse with each other over toast.
But fortunately, it didn't happen.
Yes, fortunately, it was just a bunch of cussing and almost punching each other.
And the two sides have kind of come together.
The two sides of the same party.
McCarthy has made a whole bunch of concessions.
He has made a whole, that's true.
And the key point is that concessions aren't minor. They aren't just procedural.
Yeah, no, like they're not even following them.
They changed the whole way of doing business in the
whole way, everything. Yeah. Now they flip coins. It's great.
House, and I talked about that.
These have a dartboard to pick whose amendments get on there.
Yesterday, they've resulted in important things like a new church committee to investigate sort of deep state abuse. That's
super exciting. Not a new church committee that isn't a church committee to investigate the deep state. How can that not be successful?
going to be critically important. That's
Oh, it's good. It's great. My question is, how do you subpoena the deep state? Anybody know? Where do you mail the subpoena? How do you serve them? Do you just stand in parking lots looking for puffs of smoke coming from behind pillars?
something that we simply had to do.
Yeah, you gotta. You can't. I mean, sure, bills and fucking material worth for the American people. We have to do this. Otherwise, our insane constituents will string us up and stand on our lawn with torches and shotguns.
And I think it would be a real black mark against the GOP if it had left that out.
Oh, yeah. They hadn't put the committee where they can do some PR stunts. It's going to be, yeah.
But I want to give you some sense of the comprehensiveness of the McCarthy agenda. This is not McCarthy's own agenda.
No, of course not. I call it McCarthy's agenda, but it's not really his agenda. They made him. And he wouldn't have done it if they hadn't made him, even though most of it he agreed to, like, in August. But obviously, it's not his agenda because he's a rhino fuck, and I hate his guts. But he's running everything now, so it couldn't be better.
This is the agenda that he agreed to with the...
Oh, yeah. So, just so you know, anything you agree to is not your agenda for legal purposes. Sock that away, folks, for yourself.
You know, kind of a gun to his head.
Oh, God, if I got to his head. Which is exactly how you want things run. By a small, loud constituency that is out of touch with the National Republican Party. Good times. What could possibly go wrong?
In other words, what the House Freedom
In other words, a gun to his head.
Caucus guys realize is, in a way, we have more power than McCarthy. True, he has 200 votes and we have 20. And
True. We're 10% of the electorate, and we want dominance over everyone else because our ideas are wholly unpopular. But since it's such a squeak minority or a squeak majority, we basically have them over a barrel. So fuck them. We can just control them, not because we earned it, but because we fucked the Republican Party into fewer gains during a contest they should have run away with.
And this is the point that kind of Hannity never got. Hannity's like, well...
Oh, fucking Hannity, right? I mean, Demes doesn't have to tell you.
To Lauren Boebert, well, why don't you...
What are you doing, Lord Boebert?
Concede. You're asking McCarthy to step down, but he has 200, you have 20. But the point is, McCarthy needed to get almost all the Republicans to become Speaker. And so...
that... He didn't want him. He had to. Oh. I was wondering why that went on for days and days and why he gave away I was like, does he even need these votes? And apparently, it turns out he does. And why is that? Because of the narrow majority. Which, instead of recognizing that the extremists in the party actually contributed to the narrowing of the majority, they blame the majority, including people, by the way, who won in gerrymandered districts for running as kind of, relatively middle of the road. George Santos, as an exception. But, look, the point is, if you have leverage, whether you've earned it or not, use it, baby.
So they realized, the Boebert and others, that McCarthy needed them more than they needed him.
Yeah. Well, I guess at a certain point, they don't give a shit if the government works at all. So they don't need anybody to be speaker. By the way, this is the same party. These are members of the same party.
And so they cut a deal that's a very favorable deal. And
it's fantastic.
Let's look at some of the things that McCarthy has agreed to.
Let's look at them. Let's see it. All right, we got 3 minutes left. You guys ready? Get your pencils out.
In addition to the committee to investigate the deep state.
Yeah, just deep state. You had me at deep state. Yeah, if we can just get to Is Hillary at Gitmo or not? You answer that question, I'm solid.
To the new way of doing business in the House. And by the way, in addition,
Yeah, the new way of doing business, which is, I guess, trading committee seats for votes. Oh, wait a minute. That's not new. That's been around for fucking ever. It's downright, what's the word I'm looking for? Swampy.
to the repeal of the IRS agents. Now, by itself, that
The repeal of the IRS agents, which can happen, didn't happen. They passed a bill to do it, but it's not going anywhere. The fuck are they talking about?
doesn't defund the agents, but it does put some legislative power behind that idea, an idea.
All right, yeah. Run that by me again, fucko. Listen to this.
Put some legislative agents. Now, by business in the House. And by the way, in addition to the repeal of the IRS agents. Now, by itself, that doesn't defund the agents, but it does put some legislative power behind that idea, an idea that I think will live to fight another day.
Okay, did you get that? Yeah. Yeah, that asshole traded away committee seats and present votes and all this shit for a bill that would go nowhere and didn't actually do what it said it did. Which, by the way, they went out, Boebert, McCarthy, everybody went out and said, we did that. We passed a bill to pull back the funding. It didn't do that. It can't do that. It doesn't. There is no situation where in any party, much less a minority of one party, has line item veto over budgets that have already fucking passed. It's goofy. But they literally stand there and he said, McCarthy is specifically, we did that right away. No, they didn't. They voted on it. Who gives a fuck?
McCarthy agreed that a single congressperson acting on a Jeffersonian motion can vote to remove the speaker. That
really? What's the Jeffersonian motion? Do they have to stand with their legs together in like knickers and a white wig with their hand on a podium like this with a quill in their hand and go, what's the Jeffersonian motion? I'm not quite sure. I'm just going by the statues I've seen.
That's new.
It is new. It's really actually old. It was around for a long time, and then everybody was like, that's kind of fucking dumb. Especially when we have lunatics here.
Mentioned the
Maybe, I don't know, consensus of more than one fucking member of 500 should be necessary.
Church-style committee.
But honest to God, I don't fucking care, and it won't survive into the next Democratic House because it's nuts.
Term limit.
Yes, it's like Captain Morgan. Yes, that's the Jeffersonian motion. It's just you have to strike a Captain Morgan on the House floor.
Limits are going to be put up for a vote. Again, congressmen generally don't like term limits. You can kind of see here the view of the Republican establishment. We'd like to be congressmen as long as we can. If we stop being congressmen, we want to be running for the Senate. But we don't really want to go back to normal life where we have to get up at 8 in the morning, shave, do a normal day's work.
The fuck are you talking about? What is it? How does he think, like, do they think they just, like, don't get up and shower in the morning? They fucking slack around. Who do they think they are? Trump? With, like, executive time till 11 a.m.?
So they don't like term limits, but term
fucking, and by the way, another bill that's going fucking nowhere. Next.
Limits is on the agenda. Single subject bills, no omnibus bills that just have 400 things in them.
Now those are different. Like different parts of the budget versus an omnibus that covers all the areas is different than single subject bills and not amending stuff to bills that are riders onto the bills. Which, by the way, is something, quite frankly, that Republicans use a lot more. And when Democrats do it, they'll get angry because they put riders on stuff that are must-pass for Republicans with their own constituents, but not on must-pass bills overall.
Where you don't even have time to read it and all kinds.
And by the way, again, you have time to fucking read it. Secondly, they said 72 hours, and they voted on shit right after the rules. There wasn't 72 fucking
of giveaways
hours.
And earmarks are thrown in there. The Texas border plan is going to be put before Congress. And this is, by the way,
another dead bill. Honest to fucking God. This reminds me of people who are like the force the vote crowd. who go, at least we make them say it, whatever, which is, what are these assholes ultimately taking home with them? What are they taking back to their constituents? Failure. What do you tell? Yeah, we promised you we'd have a vote on repealing the funding for 87,000 IRS agents. We promised we'd have a vote for you on the Texas plan. We promised we'd have a vote on it. They all failed, and even if they'd have passed, they wouldn't make it all the way to the Senate and then back here, and it would never happen or whatever. But we did have the vote, and don't you feel better? What? Your electrical grid is fucked. That was not on the list of things we were going to have a vote about, actually. And what? Floodwaters. I did not hear about that. I'm sorry, I was busy setting up a Hunter Biden laptop committee to go over the shit that's readily available on the internet but inadmissible in any court of law. Is Wednesday good for you? Because I get up in the morning and I just stay in bed till about 1. And then I don't even shave most days. It's being a congressperson or whatever.
An effort to create a full physical border infrastructure.
An effort to create a full physical border infrastructure. Where does the money come for a border wall that covers the entire southern border of the United States? Because there's a dude in Florida they can call if they want an earful about how Mexico won't pay for it.
Change.
Also, by the way, this is Chip Roy's group who said this. Where the fuck does that money come from?
Border enforcement policies, enforce our laws in the interior, which is to say to go after lawbreakers who are roaming free among us. And
mm-hmm. Because what? The CBP and ICE don't do that? They just see somebody like, that guy's stabbing someone. Don't bother him. He's not a citizen. Just let it happen.
And finally, target cartels and criminal organizations. Biden.
What? When? What? Oh, all right. That's it. Targeting criminal organizations, and I certainly hope we don't defund the FBI then.
Border policy a complete disaster.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, to some degree, I agree. Leaving Title 42 in place and artificially increasing the number of crossings to make it look like millions of people are crossing when it's the same 100,000 over and over again.
It looks like the House is at the very least going to be making some genuine effort.
At the very least, making some genuine effort. Well, House Republicans, I'd like to remind you to lift with your knees. That's right. You want to get a partner. There's no shame. It's heavy. And you want to lift with your knees. Some semblance of genuine effort. Oh, it's so good. At least they're going to try to put forward something that looks like it's actually something, even though it's nothing, because it takes a lot of work to make nothing look like something. And they're working very hard at that. They're not working smart, but fuck you.
To challenge all this. COVID mandates will be ended, as well as all funding for them, including...
They literally, what COVID mandates? By the way, all the school ones and business ones, business ones they can't control. School ones, it's just added to the regular inoculation that you have to get for the rest of shit. And these people, only people who balk at that are the same people who don't want to get fucking measles and polio vaccines.
So-called emergency funding.
Including so-called emergency funding, because who in the fuck thinks that COVID is a fucking emergency? I mean, what in the world would make you think that COVID in any way is, of all the things in the world that's going on right now, COVID itself is, I mean, that's not a problem. There you go. All right, hold on. There you go. COVID. There you go. There's your cases. Look at that. 2 million cases. China COVID deaths expected to hit $36,000. Sorry. Here you go. Look at this. China's COVID deaths expected to surge to 36,000 a day over Lunar New Year. That's next week. Next week in China, where they don't have a functioning vaccine, 36,000 Chinese people a fucking day. Airfinity boosts China's expected death rate by 11,000 a day. Findings suggest a significant health burden in the next fortnight, the next 2 weeks. China's likely to see 36,000 COVID deaths a day during the Lunar New Year holidays. That's a 2-week period, by the way, making one of the most deadly periods of the pandemic, according to an updated analysis of the largest outbreak that the world has ever experienced. And by the way, you think that number, and by the way, they only count people who die directly of COVID-related pneumonia. If there's anything else going on, and again, these are the same people who are like, if you had cancer when you were hit by a car, then the car is not to blame. The drunk driver is not to blame because you were going to die of the cancer anyways. That's their feeling about COVID in general. A lot of right-wingers and the Chinese government. Same fucking thing. Revised figures from the independent forecasting firm Airfinity added 11,000 deaths a day to its December 29th estimate, a jump that shows the breathtaking pace of the outbreak and the lack of clear information about how it's spreading in the world's most populous nation. Allegedly, world's most populous nation. The update is based on data from China's regional provinces combined with rates seen in other COVID-0 countries after they first lifted restrictions, the London-based research firm said. China will likely experience a longer, more severe COVID wave. That was the other thing. A lot of these people thought this would be fucking over, that it would peak right now, and it would be on the fade. I don't know where the fuck people thought this. Like, I could not understand the logic in any of this. That it would peak this week, and then as Lunar New Year came, it would actually start going down, which is the exact opposite of logically that it would have. Like, of course it's going to get a double spike. Even if it was on the way down, the number of cases spreading through everybody interacting and everybody going home and taking it home with them is of course going to drive the number up through the fucking roof. Like, literally, people were saying that, like, by mid-January it's going to be the peak, and then it'll go down for... I don't even know how's your brain function? China will likely experience one longer, more severe COVID wave rather than peaks and valleys as the traditional festival marked by millions of people returning home to reunite with their families fuels high levels of virus transmission, according to the predictive health analytics company that's been tracking the pandemic. Our forecast estimates a significant burden on China's healthcare system for the next fortnight, said Matt Lindley, Airfinity's analytics director. It's likely that many treatable patients could die due to overcrowded hospitals and lack of care. And by the way, I talked about this at the beginning of fucking lockdown. Remember in the fall of 2020, those of you that have been with the show for any length of time will remember us watching this shit. And as someone who was just in China months before, this whole story of they're building hospitals. Oh my God, China's building hospitals so quickly. It's amazing. And they weren't building hospitals. They're fucking prisons. They're basically dying quarters. They put you in there. They shove food under the door. If you survive on your own, they will let you out maybe in 10 days. But most of the people they put in there were symptomatic and in bad shape and ended up dying. And then they just rolled them over, wrapped them up in fucking plastic and buried them. It's horrifying. There is no fucking way that China has lost fewer than 17 million people since 2020 to COVID. Minimum. And because even in the beginning of it, this is pre-Delta, when they were like, we're opened up because zero COVID won, and America and all these other places, they're fucking around and finding out. China was having parties and giving the finger to the Western world because we got past it because of our zero COVID policy. And then they had to shut down multiple times again. Remember they had like festivals and all that kind of shit that they were showing? Those fucking people died. It's 20 million cell phones went offline in 2020. Chinese people pay for everything with their fucking phones. They use like Weibo and WeChat. They use WeChat Pay to pay for food and stuff. There's little QR codes at little kiosks or any fucking guy with a cart. You can pay with it. You don't need cash. You just pay for everything that way. And that phone number is your fucking life. It's like passports or driver's license just evaporating. 20 million phones in 1 year went offline. Now, did some people dump their shit and move back home and didn't contact anybody or didn't want the government to know where they were so they wouldn't get caught in a lockdown? Absolutely. That's about a quarter of those fucking people. So 15 million of those people, where the fuck are they? I'll tell you where they are. They're under 3 feet of dirt, most of them. Tragic era in Sino history, no question. CSL. I mean, it's fucking heartbreaking. And it's all a lie. Anybody who's like, 4,000 fucking people in a country with 1.4 billion, are you out of your fucking mind? And now it's just going to get worse. 36,000 fucking people a day. Meanwhile, this Dinesh is in soundly in the China's going to eat our lunch crowd. Still.
A lot of times, by and large, the Biden administration is kind of like, ask and you shall receive. It's an emergency. We need to have this allocation of additional money. And the House GOP answer now, no.
They're honest to God. There's any funding for COVID stuff, but for another huge outbreak that, by the way, Republicans would be fucking straight in line with in a lot of these districts. On the down low, by the way, they would cut deals and vote yes and then just run out of the fucking room because, and the Freedom Caucus would vote no, but they'd be outvoted by the people in their caucus just because that would make, look, I can't vote yes for this and get reelected. You're in a purple district. You can you vote yes for me and I'll owe you later. There's going to be those kind of fucking, it's like, the Republicans, the Freedom Caucus are like buying people's normal votes in the regular Republican House caucus like they're carbon credits.
Budget bills don't automatically defer to a kind of extension of the debt ceiling. In other words, spend as much as you want. If we don't have the money, we don't have the guts to raise taxes to get it.
Okay, asshole. No. Democrats have the guts to raise taxes. This is the same shit Chip Roy was saying. And when he says we don't have the guts to raise taxes, he means Republicans. Specifically.
We'll just raise the debt ceiling. No, there are a whole bunch of Republican congressmen now that want to put a rein on spending. Look, the United States is...
Again, if you want to put a rein on spending, put it on the next one. Put forward your budget that says, because of this budget, we won't have to raise the debt ceiling. And we're working hand in glove with everybody else. And this is the thing. We have the votes to pass this. Holding the debt ceiling hostage is not that. That is just shit that was passed before. Same thing like in the first year of the Biden administration. And quite frankly, in the second year, a lot of the carryover from it, from all the expenditures made during Trump. $7 trillion added to the national debt during Trump's years. So, and by the way, a large portion of it to patch holes in the economy because of COVID, again, which is like the money printer go burr fuckers can just piss off.
It's a very rich country. We can spend a lot of money, but there is a limit.
What is it? What's the limit? Because what's Trump's limit? What is it? What's his GDP to debt ratio? What do you think? Anybody got a guess that his GDP to profit ratio, his profit to debt ratio for the Trump organization since 1992, when he essentially took the entire thing over from his debt? What do you think? Servicing debt and having debt versus how much profit he gets. What do you think? 3,000%? What's the debt payment for the actual profits? If you're going to talk about GDP versus national debt, and like it's a crisis, we're at 126% or something like that. most households are at like 150% because your house and your mortgage and all that stuff, that's a liability. You might feel like it's an asset, but until it's paid off or it makes more money so that it's worth more than your down payment. And by the way, the housing market's going down next year. The rental market is going to crash. There's going to be all this wailing and gnashing of teeth from investors in the real estate market. Person to person, it's not going to fuck you up at all. If you're going to stay in your house for a few years, it won't matter at all. They'll be in a fucking panic and yammering about shit. But what do you think Trump's profit to debt ratio is? I'm guessing it's at least in the 3,000%. At least. Because and again, the debt ceiling argument, did any of these people think it was stupid for Trump to like refinance all of his debt with whoever would give him a better rate all the time and squeeze it out and never pay it off?
Because the fastest way to become a poor country is to keep...
By next year, do you mean 2024 or do you mean 2020? You mean me or him? Support.
Keep outspending your means.
Wait, George Santos drag queen photos are now emerging on Twitter? Get out. All right. Sidebar, Mr. President, if I may. Chairman, come on now. Come on. And watch this. Be the fucking thing. It's gotta be. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. This should be fairly Santos drag. Photos. Brazilian drag queen who was friends with George Santos when he lived near Rio. There he is. Said everyone knew him as Anthony, never George. Yeah, Anthony DeVolder. Or by his drag name Kitara. Confirms this is a photo from 2008 drag show at Ikarai Beach. Oh dear. Ran as a far right candidate. Drag is beautiful. Boxing, anti-drag, anti-trans, bigotry or not. Hold on. George Santos under scrutiny. Ask him about Kitara Ravash, his drag name and pageant queen. There he is again. And is that him here? Yeah. Is that supposed to be him early on? That looks... A Republican drag queen elected to... Oh, come on. All right. Maybe he had... he has so many, filtered pictures, it's hard to tell which ones are real and which ones he would... that looks like something he would post anyways with an old filter on a phone. Report, George Santos performed in drag in Brazil. Okay. Is this other picture? Yeah, that's the picture of him. There you go. Again, it's honest, we don't have a problem with drag. The problem we have is this shit. His weird, picture of him as the Nazi with the burned palm in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, what shall we talk about? Yeah, well, by the way, there is a difference between drag and gag drag. This is gag drag, not only because it makes you gag, but because, whether he enjoyed it or not is immaterial. Yep, so there you go. Has he responded? Latest. George Santos, support of anti-LGBTQ, participated in drag shows and went by the name Kitara in Brazil. How many names does this motherfucker have? Liz Cheney's replacement, joining the gas stove culture where she looks like George Santos in drag. There's a case there. Yeah, this. Hold on, I have to. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Santos used Jewish name. Yeah, this is fucking amazing. Can I just do this real quick while we're on the Santos tip for 1 second? Santos used a fake Jewish last name to raise money on a GoFundMe page. The name was, where is it? Live in Santos. told Institute Tuesday Santos used several aliases during their time as roommates. Maury Parker said he primarily knew Santos, who was listed his name as George Anthony DeVolder Santos, as Anthony DeVolder. But the former roommate said Santos also referred to himself as Anthony Zabrowski, a name the now New York congressman reserved for a GoFundMe venture called Friends of Pets United. That's the one where he raised money for a dog and then never used it and the dog died. Zabrowski and variations of the name are common among Ashkenazi Jews. Maury Parker told CNN he would say, "Oh well, the Jews will give more if you're a Jew." And so that's the name he used for his GoFundMe. That part right there, that was like that, like the I'm a proud Jew thing and the Jewish thing, like that's creepy and fucked up enough, right? That's just lying and gross and whatever. This is fucking racist. This is just bigoted, like straight up just like Jew hatred. Like, yeah, the way to manipulate Jews into giving you money is make them think you're a Jew. Fucking hell. And by the way, this is exactly why Mike Pillow wears a cross in all of his advertisements, because he's trying to sell to Christians who go, oh, look at him proudly wearing his cross when you're not supposed to, which nobody gives a rat fuck. It's branding. This, though, that is fucked up. Right? The Dems dropped the ball on this guy. Here's the problem. And this is to some degree on us, but then it's also a point of pride with me, is that Democrats have a tendency that if they view you as part of a marginalized community or a minority with lived experience that is unheard, they will give you the space to have that, even if you're fucking making it up. There were people on the Democratic side of the aisle that came to the defense of Rachel Dolezal, for fuck's sake. The woman who pretended to be black to run and became the head of the NAACP chapter in fucking Seattle. She's not black. She isn't. She's not at all. That's not a thing. You can't trans-race yourself just because you feel like it. It's fucked up. It's weird. No. Stop it. You can enjoy the culture. You dress like people from another culture if you fall in love with that shit. I know plenty of kung fu nerds that walk around. I'm one of them, in like Chinese kung fu jackets and shit like that, because it looks cool and you like it and it's inspiring and you think it's great and it resonates with you. Cool, but that does not make you Chinese or black or Korean or even white, for fuck's sake. Like, stop it. You're not, like, if you want to learn to play the fucking bagpipes, or it doesn't make you Scottish. I'm just saying, it's so fucking stupid. And that's one thing. Like, and this kind of goes to like, what you would say is like transposers, or what they call trans-trenders instead of transgender. The transgenders, people who, dress, provocatively as women or provocatively as men. They're not drag. They're playing on the positivity that is given out to trans people right now as we try to make a transition from vilifying to accepting as a society. There's some people who jump on that and go, hey, I can gain a little, it's almost like stolen valor to some degree, to pretend to be, that group when you're absolutely not. And there's an element of it in like Harry Styles and other people wearing dresses on stuff like, I'm cool with it, which is not the same thing as being trans. And it's almost like you're borrowing from the imagery that trans people have in a way that they're having a hard time dealing with. And you can get away with it because at any time you can just go back to being you. In the same way that Rachel Dolezal, if she ever ran aground of the difficulties of being black in Seattle at some point, could just go back to being a white lady. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's different when you have an out. Now, do I give a shit if a straight male artist decides to wear a dress as a thumb in the nose or whatever? Fine. But it doesn't make you brave. It's not bravery because you have an out. That isn't your life. You are borrowing that imagery from people who are transitioning at this current time in history. I honestly, I think it's a little fucked up. When I see stuff about, Harry Styles wearing dresses and that kind of stuff, or those kind of people, I'm like, it just feels like you're stealing it. How like there's stolen valor when someone wears military garb or pretends to have been in the military or pretends to have seen battle to get the honor that comes with that. I would call this stolen sympathy. That you are using the renewed empathy of society or the renewed sympathies of society for people who are finally coming out or being able to explore who they are in reality when you're just playing like it's a fucking sandbox. It's the same problem I have with some people who, and this is not about non-binary people, but some people who identify as non-binary, when in reality, it's just cosplay for them, and they're giving the finger to a part of society, which is, again, at any point, without any, issues with their own gender identity or whatever, could just go right back to it. Yeah, it's victimization appropriation. That's a great way of putting it, Flangdoodle. And I think it's fucked up. What about David Bowie? David Bowie wasn't wearing dresses, per se. And even then, he was doing it as a punkish act when he would wear, like, feminized, shiny clothing. It's different. How about a good old imposter? That's different. That's like the, Jessica/Jonathan Yaniv in Canada. People like that who take advantage of the freedoms that we're trying to give to people who are trans in terms of bathroom status and take advantage of that. Because again, there's a difference between being trans and someone who is an autogynephiliac. The BTK killer would dress up in women's clothing, wear a mask, and imagine himself to be his own dead victims. That's not trans. That's autogynephilia. He got a fetished sexual arousal from momentarily pretending to be that. Eddie Izzard views himself as a cross-dresser, did for years. He was a transvestite and identified it as such. So he was very forward in who he is. He believes himself to be transgender, but only because the word has moved mostly in his lifetime, I think. So it's hard to say. It's up to him. But insofar as I think he's toyed around with other pronouns at a couple of times, but he's basically gone back to it. But I think we can all understand the difference, right? And so in making room for trans people, for example, it's very important that we do. But we don't let non-trans, not trans at all, people who are autogynephiliacs, people who get a fetished excitement out of being perceived as or perceiving themselves as the other sex, because that's rooted in a lot of deeper, often violent perversions. Those folks don't get the rights that we're trying to give to trans people, because it's not the same fucking thing any more than Rachel Dolezal deserves a scholarship that's supposed to be set up for black people. Does that make sense? There is a difference. And I think that's partly where the argument is. Partly where all this shit is in the, I think on the Democratic side of things, there's a rush to protect people who are trans and protect LGBT people, which I think is very good. But with it comes the expense of allowing anyone who simply says they are to qualify, when many of them either mean ill or are not trans at all. And that distinction is not wrong. It's just, it's a fine point. And trans people will tell you this, that, again, there's a difference between Rachel Dolezal and a black person, same way there's a difference between BTK, cross-dressing for sexual purposes, and a trans person who's really dealing with a gender transition. It's different. And acting like there isn't, and acting like, well, no one who says they are would ever be lying, does a disservice to trans people. In the same way that allowing somebody like Rachel Dolezal to get away with, getting a scholarship or some like small business loan meant for minorities would be wrong. Get it? Does that make sense? Are we clear? Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, this whole thing though, and this is, I think, in some ways that there's a huge difference. There's a leap in this languaging. It is one thing to say you're Jewish and lie about being Jewish, just for the sake of, maybe you wish you were, or maybe you want to make friends and you're just stupid. Beyond the fact that the root of his reason for saying that. What was the reason that he said he was Jewish or that he had family that were in the Holocaust and shit like that? This is the reason. Oh, well, the Jews will give you more money if you're a Jew. That, if that statement is at all true, that is an order of magnitude worse than the stupid Jewish quit part. And it shows the intent behind pretending to be Jewish was not just socially awkward, trying to ingratiate yourself into a community you find yourself surrounded with. Like, yeah, what are you guys talking about? Sports? I love sport ball. What's the game that, they get it in the net? Hey, right through the goalposts. That's what I was saying. Like, were you just trying to suck up because you can't make friends and you don't know anything about what people are talking about? And going, watch this, I can bullshit these assholes into handing me their wallets. That's a whole different game, especially when it's based on race or religion. Fuck that dude. All right, here we go. Back to where we were, because no doubt the mess will come to the defense of George Santos.
Means to keep raising the deficit and the debt, which has now reached gargantuan, astronomical levels.
It's not astronomical at all, unless you consider the American economy to be reaching astronomical levels, because it's 115%, 120% of GDP. So 100% of that must certainly be astronomical. Huh? No, right. America's a third world country, shithole, right.
So introducing an element of fiscal prudence. Now,
prudence.
Will all of this pan out? Will all of this result in good things? I don't know.
No. Will it result in good things? No. Not at all.
To be cautious, and we also...
Yes, be guarded. Don't get your heart broken again. Once bitten, twice shy.
So have to be vigilant in keeping our House members on their toes, so to speak.
Yes, keeping people on their toes, in stress positions. What you want is your already edgy, fucked up, psychotic, paranoid Congress members to be behaving like they're in Abu Ghraib. While they're on their toes, why don't you make them stand on an upside down paint bucket with electrodes on their nipples, you fucking asshole? I have as many of you may know, I have a chip on my shoulder about keeping people on their toes or holding their feet to the fire. Those two analogies, and people who use them, can go fuck themselves. I don't believe in torture analogies to get people interested. If they're not interested, don't elect them if you have to sell them on your ideas, so much so that they only will keep their promises if you torture them. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, Eggs 5 no more. Thank you so much. And Water Goddess, thank you so much for the super chat. And Robert, thank you as well. Larry, thanks to HAL stream and the chat for sincere and stimulating topics. And thanks to Ficus, my favorite character, for his razor sharp punditry. He doesn't know which side of the fence he's on right now. He's very confused right now. It's a rough time for Ficus.
Because, and I think the House Freedom Caucus is going to try to make sure that these concessions, these agreements, these deals made by McCarthy are in fact kept and are enforced.
You think that they're going to try to keep him to that? How successful do you think they're going to be, considering they are no longer needed? And, oh, by the way, can I remind everyone that while it only takes one person to call for the speaker's vote again, there is only one option where he doesn't have the majority of them, where they don't get right back to the present vote, is if you whip 5 or 10 other people anyways. So running it down from 5 to 1 had zero fucking meaning. If you can't bring people on board, then that 5 or 10 group of people, then it'll be a failed vote any fucking way, and just waste your time. And the Democrats can sit there and go, fuck, man, we go through 4 more days of this horse shit. But holding their feet to the fire. Never mind, I believe you stood up and blasted for a gun last time. Yes, I did.
Forced, because if they're not, let's remember, it only takes one member of the House to put McCarthy's own speakership up for a vote.
Right. But it takes at least 10 people to go with you which is higher than the 5 number, which is why he didn't give a fuck. And it just puts you back in the same position. So that person, that one person, be it Lauren Boebert, be it Matt Gaetz, be it Perry, be it Chip Roy, be it any of these motherfuckers, they come out and they go, let's call for a vote right now. Hell, if a Democrat does it, all it does is makes the Freedom Caucus vote present again. Like if a Democrat just called for it, I call for a roll call vote on the speaker, and they could do a whip count and go, hey, how many people are here? How many how many people? They got 12 people out right now? Do we have anybody out? Everybody's here. Madam Speaker, I would like to call for Madam President, I would like to call for a roll call vote for Speaker because they wouldn't have the votes to keep him in. It's just dumb. But on the Republican side, they would need at least 10 to back them up. That's why he went from 5 to 1 and it didn't fucking matter. Just like, and for what? How does that result in making him keep his promises? If you don't put a bill up that will never get the fuck out of the House so that I can flex back home about what a failure I am to get actually any legislation through, I will call for a vote where the votes will basically ring out exactly the same way they did last time. And in best case scenario, and worst case scenario, we'll have 4 more fucking days of bullshit like we had last time with no one waiting in the wings to take over the spot if we don't. Have at it, fuckos. I give a shit. And by the way, this is him going through the list. Was there anything in there that worried any of you other than the debt ceiling stuff, which I call bullshit on? It will absolutely get passed. And the Democrats can afford, because, by the way, the Democrats largely have the states that have the most money, can afford to ride it out longer with local support for people than red states can. The first squeeze comes to red states when you shut down the government or you do this kind of brinksmanship with the debt ceiling. Anything else? Like, honestly, what the vote to repeal the 50,000, any of this shit, any of it, it's a fucking joke. Even a fucking church commission to look into the deep state. I mean, I'm happy about it because it's going to give me a shit ton of programming, and you and I are going to have a laugh going after this shit. It's going to be hilarious. But am I worried about, like, what are they going to do? Draw up some charges and refer them to Merrick Garland's DOJ and expect him to what? Act swiftly? Right? Do you see? For what? Like a year and a half? Meanwhile, they're going to lose Santos. They're going to lose 4 others at least. There's going to be a chance that there'll be a vote in the fucking spring for the House, not because somebody's called for a vote simply because they don't like it, Kevin's not keeping his promises, but because Democrats will go, hey, wait a minute. Fuck, we have the votes to actually, we're in control. What time is it? That's going to happen. And it only takes one of them to stand up and have the vote. And it's a whole new Congress by like June. Now, some of it might take longer depending on whether they drag their feet on special elections and whatnot, or if guys hold out, or the Republicans are not going to they're not going to kick anybody off short of them going to straight to fucking jail. Like they're not going to drop you or make you resign unless you're fucking sentenced, including Santos. Like I fully expect, because McCarthy needs every fucking vote he has, that he's going to hang on to Santos with both fucking hands. They can. Well, Jarko says they can pass. Biden will veto. It won't even pass the Senate. He won't even have to veto it. Good Lord. So I'm just, yeah, everything's DOA in the Senate in that regard. And if they don't want to wreck the economy just to, flex for their folks back home, they're going to have to come up with actual solutions that they can stomach. And there are none. Because they're not going to raise taxes and they're not going to cut the bigger programs because none of them can fucking afford it. So get ready for a bunch of showboat committees and votes on bills that won't go fucking anywhere. And to all the force the vote folks that like, we have to force a vote on Medicare for all to get people on board to show where they really are. No. One of the reasons Democrats don't want to pull that up is because if it fails, because they don't have the votes across the board, it's harder to bring it up next time. And I got news for you. Just because somebody's Democratic and in a Democratic district doesn't mean the majority of their constituents want it in that way. They might want a public option, but that won't be enough for a bunch of people. So they'll just, even if you vote for a public option, and that fails because it's just still not enough. Because again, that's, there's an argument about the public option in reconciliation, but you've got to have the House. And you need a lot of votes. Because, and again, filibuster being what it is, that's what holds it back. So anyways, I love you guys. I'm gonna drop out and go back to sleep because I didn't do too bad. I had a little bit of a nap, not much of one. Cats. But we're doing, I think I'll be back to my total self tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow I'm going to be on I've got local press here out the wazoo, 8 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. in the morning. I'll be tweeting from the places while I'm there. One's a Zoom thing and the other one's in studio. And then I'll be home for the afternoon show. Should be good. And then I'm going to be on Steph's show, 8 a.m. on Friday, roll straight into my morning show. And then I've got press in the after that at like 12:15, and then regular show in the afternoon. So it's going to be full days. And in between those things, I'm not saying a fucking word because I got singing to do. Anyways, and thanks to everybody who came out to the jam. The next one, by the way, is February 14th. If you're making Valentine's Day plans to be in Los Angeles or you're in the area, the big thing they're going to do is like dinner at the Rainbow, and then everybody walks down to the Whiskey for the show. And it's going to be like love songs and anti-love songs. I think we got to ping pong. We got to do like, I believe in a thing called love, and like I want to know what love is, and then love bites, you know what I mean, like vacillate. It's gonna be good. Yes, 4:00 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. On Thursdays it's 4:00, and then regular shows on Saturday, even though I'm doing all the other stuff, and it should be good. Hal Washington, please come up here. I would love to, Janoon, but I currently don't have an agent because I let mine go, because they can't function as an agency because the SEC stopped the merger between the two agencies, one of which I belong to. And so nobody knows who they work for. For the last fucking year, nothing was happening. So I'm like, bye-bye. And so I'm a free agent right now. And I'll land on somebody right now. But quite frankly, I got a lot going on with just our little show. As it grows, and don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps a lot. As it's been growing, it's, my dance card is pretty fucking full, I gotta say. So, but soon enough, we'll find somebody, don't worry. Anyways, much love to you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Bye-bye. The new U.S. party requirements, that's ridiculous. That's crazy talk and totally counterproductive. But good luck with that. space for all the gifted subs. Thanks, Todd, and thank you, DC2257 again, and Bethany, thank you so much. Larry, Robert, again, Water God, thank you a ton. Templeton, thank you so much. Eddie Venmo and Patreon upgrade incoming. Aw, thank you. Pinky Promise Friends, I like y'all. Yeah, over 1,500 people in the chat, Templeton. We're doing all right. Much love to you guys. Okay, bye. Thanks, Fred.
I would